thangnebedd a fel gyda chwi. Randewch yr Efengyl sanctaidd yn ôl Sant Ioan. Bryd hynny, amlygodd Iesu ei hun unwaith eto i'w ddisgyblion a lan môr Tiberias. A dyma sut y gnaeth hynny. Pan ddaeth y bore, safodd Iesu ar y lan, ond nid oedd y disgyblion yn gwybod mai Iesu ydoedd. Dyma Iesu felly'n gofyn iddynt, does gennych ddim pysgod bechgyn? Nac oes, atebasant ef. Meddai yntau wrthynt, bwriwch y rhwyd i'r ochr dde i'r cwch, ac fe gelch elfa. Gneithant felly, a ni allent dynnu'r rhwyd i mewn gan gymaint y pysgod oedd ynddi. A dyma'r disgybl hwnnw, yr oedd Iesu'n ei garu, yn dweud wrth Peder, yr arglwydd yw. Wedi iddynt lanio, gwelsant dan golwsg wedi ei osod a physgod arno, a bara. Dewch, meddai Iesu wrthynt, cymerwch frecwast. Ond nid oedd neb o'r disgyblion yn beiddio gofyn iddo, pwy wyt ti? Yr oeddent yn gwybod mai yr arglwydd ydoedd. Daeth Iesu atynt a chymerodd y bara a rhoi iddynt, a pysgod yr un modd. Dyma, yn awr, y drydydd waith i Iesu ymddangos i'w ddisgyblion ar ôl iddo gael ei gyfodi oddi wrth y meirw. Yna, wedi iddynt gael brecwast, gyfynodd Iesu i Seimon Peder, Seimon fab Ioan, a wyt ti'n fy ngharu i yn fwy na rhain? Atebodd ef, ydwyf arglwydd, fe wyddos ti fy mod yn dy garu di. Meddai Iesu wrtho, fforthaf o oen. Wedyn, gyfynodd iddo yr ail waith, Simon fab Ioan, a wyt ti'n fy ngharu i? Ydwyf arglwydd, medda Peder wrtho, fe wyddos ti fy mod yn dy garu di. Meddai Iesu wrtho, bugeilio fy nefaid. Gyfynodd iddo y drydydd waith, Simon, fab Ioan, a wyt ti'n fy ngharu i? Aeth Peder yn drist am ei fod wedi gofyn iddo y drydydd waith, a wyt ti'n fy ngharu i? Ac meddai wrtho, arglwydd, fe wyddos ti pob peth, ac rwyt ti'n gwybod fy mod yn dy garu di. Dywedodd Iesu wrtho, porthaf y nefaid. Yn wir, rwy'n deud wrthyt, pan oeddit yn ifanc, yr oeddit yn dy wregesu dy hunan ac yn mynd lle bynnag y mynydd. Ond, pan fyddi'n hen, fyddi'n estyn dy ddwylo i rhywun arall dy wregesu, a mynd â thi lle nad wyt yn mynnu. Dywedodd hyn i ddangos beth fyddai dull y farwolaeth yr oedd Peder i ogoneddu Duw trwyddi. Ac wedi iddo dweud hyn, meddai wrth Peder, canlyn fi. Dyma Efengyl ein gweredwr.
Yn enw'r Tad a'r Mab a'r Ysbryd Glân. Amen. Newch chi eistedd os gwelwch yn dda. Please take your seats. In the beginning, there was nothing. And God said, "Let there be light." There was still nothing, but at least you could see it now. I'm sure there are some theological and philosophical things to ask around that, but I use that little phrase just as an indication that our Christian faith is about beginnings. When you think about it, 2 books in the Bible begin with the words, in the beginning, yn y dechreuad. Genesis, llyfr cyntaf y Bible, ac Efengyl Ioan, yn y dechreuad, in the beginning. And when we think further through Scripture, you find that there are all sorts of beginnings for people as their lives were turned around and as things changed. Jesus himself, of course, first of all, but then also Paul and Peter and John speak about the beginning of Christian life as a new birth, a rebirth. Dechreuad hollol newydd mewn bywyd. A new beginning, a brand new start, a new life starting all over. And as we go through history, you'll find all sorts of people experiencing a new beginning. And today, it's a new beginning. For Mary and for John, this is a big, big day. A new beginning in their ministry. Dechreuad newydd yn ei gweinidogaeth. In Mary and John, we've got 2 people who have very great and varied experience, not just in church life, but outside church life too. They have well-honed pastoral and evangelistic skills. They have maturity and wisdom that have grown over their years in ministry. They are well-equipped to be bishops in the church of today. And I'm sure we all today look forward to seeing those gifts and those skills and that maturity develop and grow more and more. But my little question today is, are those the things of real importance? Are they the things that when things get tough and hard, or even just when things are going really well, are they the things that we should rely on? In our gospel reading today, we find Peter at quite a tricky time, a difficult time. He and the other disciples, they've recently gone through the trauma, the awful trauma of seeing Jesus taken by the Jewish authorities, handed over to the Romans, and brutally, viciously killed. They'd experienced themselves the shame of denying and abandoning Jesus, the one that they'd learnt to love and respect so much. And yet from that time of darkness and hopelessness has sprung new life, new hope, a new light is shining because they've met Jesus again, alive and risen from death. But that leaves them with a huge question. So what now? Beth nawr? Beth sy'n mynd I ddigwydd nawr? Beth ydyn ni fod I wneud nawr? Peter was never the one to sit idly around doing nothing. And he suddenly says, I'm going fishing. The other disciples, they've come to know Peter's rather clumsy, bull-in-a-china-shop approach to things, and they've seen things go badly wrong with him from time to time. But then what else is there? They're fishermen. Why don't they just go and pick up their fishing once again? They all say, we'll go with you. And so they go back to the things that they knew and they could rely on. They've got skills at fishing. They've learned ever since they were young boys about how to handle a boat, how to throw the net, and they could do the hard graft. They knew that because they were familiar with it over many years. And so they go fishing. They're back at their old work. They're back doing what they knew, the things that were familiar. It might have taken a little while to get used to the feel of the net again. It might have taken a little bit of a while to get the boat to go exactly as they wanted. But they're doing what's familiar. And whether they succeed or fail is down to them now. And they do it all night. And they catch nothing. Trwy'r nos, yn gwneud y pethau maen nhw'n gwybod sut I wneud. Maen nhw'n gwybod beth I wneud. Ond maen nhw'n methu yn llwyr. They fail completely. And they catch not one fish. It's just a little indicator, isn't it, how we as human beings can sometimes be. We go back to what's familiar when we're under pressure, when things are difficult. It's a default mechanism in human beings. Go back to what you know. Go back to what you know you can do. And it happens in our Christian faith too. When we lose sight of Jesus and his vision and his purpose for our lives, by default, we start to rely on our own skills and our own expertise, our own maturity and our own wisdom. It all somehow creeps back, and we find ourselves once again just trying to do it by ourselves. But back to the disciples. They're coming towards the shore, and Jesus meets them again. But he doesn't say, okay, time for a new beginning. All we need to do now is get you out there, back on the road, doing all the stuff that we've been explaining to you and showing you over these years. Just get on with this new beginning. He doesn't do that. And particularly with Simon Peter, what he does, instead of sending him out straight away on a new beginning, is take him all the way back to the first beginning, to the first time that they met. Do you remember it? There's very much an echo of today's story, isn't it? Peter and Andrew, James and John, they're fishing, because that's what they did. That was how they earned their living. That was the skills and the expertise they knew. And Jesus comes, and after the miraculous catch of fish back then at the beginning, he says, now just leave all that, come and follow me. And they do. I don't know if it's ever surprised you, in both accounts, the first one where Jesus leads them to the miraculous catch of fish and this one, there's never the suggestion from the disciples that maybe Jesus could go with them and become a partner in their business. They could think of how it would be. All right, you're a carpenter, you don't know anything about boats and fishing, but you just seem to have a knack of telling us where the fish are. Maybe if we set up a partnership, we could do great things together. But it doesn't go that direction. It goes the other way. And Jesus calls the fishermen to follow him. And then at this point, they've just defaulted back to their old familiar ways. They're cold, and they're tired, and they're wet, and they're hungry, and they're disappointed because of their night's failure. What better than to see a fire of burning coals and some fish and some bread cooking? And Jesus invites them to bring some of theirs too. And they have breakfast together. They must have been feeling so much better by the end of that. But then Jesus and Peter just go for a little walk and talk together. And Jesus has a conversation which must have really gone to the very core, the very heart of Peter's being. The first thing you notice is that he goes back to Peter's original name, Simon, and identified by his family and his family's work. Simon, son of John. Not Peter the rock, the one who'd come out with that great statement and that great declaration of faith. You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. No, back to the very start. Simon, son of John. And here's the question. They look at the boats and the other fishermen, the nets and all the familiar things. And Jesus says, do you love me more than these? What a question. Do you love me more than these? And one of the difficulties for us is that both English and Welsh don't help us with this passage, because the question's asked, do you love me? And each time the answer comes, you know that I love you. But actually, when you get into what's going on underneath it, there are different words. And the word that Jesus uses is the word agape, that divine love, God's love. It isn't slushy romantic love, and it isn't the love of close friends and comrades. This is something different. This is the way that God loves. This is the love of God. Dyma cariad Dyw. Dyma'r ffordd y mae Dyw yn ein caru ni. And he says, Peter, is that the love that you have for me? Remember, Peter, you came with me, and you did so well, although we had a bumpy ride along the way. And then at the crucial point, at the crunch around the crucifixion, you denied me, and you abandoned me. You let me down. What sort of a love is that? In contrast, I haven't given up on you, and I haven't abandoned you, and I still love you with the same love that I had before, because my love for you is very different. This agape love in my heart is pure and constant, and it burns like fire. I went to a remarkable Sunday school, a primitive Methodist Sunday school. You probably didn't even know there was such a thing as primitive Methodist, but that's what we were way back then. And we had about 120 kids in our Sunday school, and it was the best thing in the week. I loved it. And all of us as kids had to have a sort of party piece, something to recite or to sing, and you had to know it all off by heart. And whenever you were called on, you had to do it. And mine was a 7-verse hymn. Only 4 lines in each verse, but 7-verse hymn. And it is still with me today. And despite all I've been through, both in terms of ministry and all that's gone with that, this is still something that I go back to time and time again. So it's an amazing hymn. It simply starts this. It is a thing most wonderful, almost too wonderful to be, that God's own Son should come from heaven and die to save a child like me. Another couple of verses, and then this comes in. It says, I sometimes think about the cross and shut my eyes and try to see the cruel nails and crown of thorns and Jesus crucified for me. But even could I see him die, I could but see a little part of that great love which like a fire is always burning in his heart. And all over the years, that has stuck with me. That's agape love, isn't it? That the Son of God would come from heaven and die to save a child like me. And it's a love which constantly burns like a raging fire in his heart. And what Jesus is saying to Peter here is, Simon, son of John, is that the love you've got for me? Is that the way you love me? Like a fire burning in your heart. So that all these things, the boats, the nets, and all these people, your brother, all your fellow fishermen, those things which have been so important to you, is your love for me more important than all of those, so that they just fade to nothing? And Peter says, Lord, you know I love you. But he uses a different word. The word he uses is philoseth. It's the love of friends, of brothers, of close friendships. It's very strong, it's very powerful, but it's quite different. Peter's as good as saying, I love you like I love my brother Andrew and my fishing business partners, James and John. Surely, Jesus, you've seen, we've become the best of friends. We've been together through it all, and we're still there side by side. Jesus asks the question a second time. Do you love me? Same question, but without the stuff, without the people, without all the old familiar ways. It's almost as if Jesus said, all right, well, let's put those to one side and forget those for the moment. Let's just ask it simply. Do you love me with a burning fire in your soul? And Peter gives the same answer, because he knows he has to be honest. He's almost saying, look, we've walked the roads of Galilee together. We've been through Jerusalem together. We've been through great times. We've been through some really tough times. I've never known a friend so strong and so good and constant as you. And that's how I love you. And the third time, Jesus asks the question, but he changes the word. And he uses that philo word. Do you love me? Do you really love me in that way? And Peter's hurt. You can understand why. I think firstly because it's just this question after question after question, even though it's different now. But secondly, because he knows that Jesus knows what's in his heart. All along the journey, Jesus has looked deeper than the outside. He's heard more than just the words that have been spoken. He's looked into people's very souls. He's known their thoughts and their motives and their attitudes. And it's just the same here. He keeps asking the question, but he already knows the answer. And Peter knows it too, and he can't give any other answer. Do you see, Jesus has taken Peter right back to the beginning and said, this isn't just about doing stuff for me. This isn't about trying to do your best to serve me. This isn't about trying to put into practice all of your skills and your expertise and your energy for me. This is about leaving all of that behind, and it's about your love for me. That's the beginning, and that's how it always will be. And Peter, although you're struggling now, one day soon, that fire will blaze in your heart, because I'm going to send the Holy Spirit. And he will kindle a fire of love in your heart that nothing and nobody will be able to diminish, let alone take away. It will empower you. It will send you with such a love for me in your heart that literally nothing else will matter. For John and Mary today, this is very much a new beginning. Dechreuad newydd i'ch gweinidogau. Dechreuad newydd yn eich bywydau. I'm sure that the feelings and the emotions for you today are very mixed. And I suppose we'd want to say, rightly so, because this is a huge task. We know, all of us here, you will be great bishops. We've seen your skills and your gifts. We've seen your maturity and your wisdom. It's grown over the years, and it will continue to do so. But I want to encourage you too, just to go right back to the first beginning, whenever that was and however it was, when you first encountered Jesus. And I wonder if today again you'll allow him to look into your eyes again and ask you that deep, deep searching question, do you love me? More than anything else, do you love me? Does that blazing fire, that all-giving, all-sacrificing love burn in your heart for me today? Because still today, that's where it starts. That's where it always needs to be. But not just Mary and John. What about all of us? What about you and I today? It may be that you have made a response to this love of Jesus many times before, or maybe you look back on a time when it just felt so different. Today might be the very first time that you've even considered that he loves you with that burning fire in his heart. Maybe the first time you've ever thought, I need to make my mind upon this. I need to make a decision on this. Maybe for all of us today, we need to find a quiet moment. It might be at the point where we receive communion. It might be just sitting quietly. It might be later today when you can find a quiet moment. Will you allow Jesus just to take you to that quiet place and look into your eyes and ask you that same heart and soul-searching question? Do you love me? Awiti and Benhari. Is there a burning love for me in your soul too? Only you can answer that. Know, like Peter did, that Jesus already knows the answer. But whatever your answer, there's still the offer of that new beginning, that brand new start. He still calls, and he still says, follow me, canlyn fi. Amen.
Most Reverend Archbishop, we present John and Mary to be ordained and consecrated to the order of bishop in the Church of God.
John and Mary, do you believe that God has called you to the office and work of a bishop in the Church of God?
I believe that God has called me.
People of God, this is John, whom we propose to ordain and consecrate to the order of bishop. I therefore ask you to declare your assent to his consecration. You trust that he is worthy to be ordained bishop.
We trust that he is worthy, and we are.
People of God, this is Mary, whom we propose to ordain and consecrate to the order of bishop. I therefore also ask you to declare your assent to her consecration. Do you trust that she is worthy to be ordained bishop?
We trust that she is worthy, and we are.
Will you support them in their ministry?
We will support them.
John a Mary. Gelwyr esgobion, Gwasanaeth o Ordeinio, ac i ofaru am sain. Gan hwnnw bod i gael da, aros a'i bywyd gyfos a'i ddefau. A mae'n i gael ei rai a ysgolwi yn ei gofal, ac i wedio'r ysgrif, gan adnabod ei pobl a bod yn adgybyddus i hyn. A mae'n i arwain ei pobl yn gweddi am maen, a llywyddu yn y Cymru Efengyl. A mae'n i fydyddio a chynffyrmio i babai a chodau ac i ddefnyddio, gan werthu pobl ryw yn bywyd yr ysbryd a'i harwain a ffrwydrau sanctaidd. A mae'n i ddefnad a meithrin doniau'r ysbryd ym mhawb sydd yn dilyn Crist, ac yn tueddu i weledyddio'i yn ei enw. A mae'n i ordeinio i aconiaeth ac Efengyl, ac i gymryd rhan yn Ordeinio a'i hun esgobion. Fel pen y geiriau, a mae'n dyletswydd arnyn gan undod ar eglwys. Llyfaru yn enw bydd, a dyhongi y ddengil iachwydwna. Yn ddifaith gwirigion a bobl, a mae'n i hyrwyddo yn cadaeth ar eglwys, ac i ofaru am pawb. Yn enwedig y ffrag, y digartref a'r anffodus. Gan yn siampl ar ysgolion, a mae'n i gyhoeddi'r Rydym, i lefaru'r gwirionedd yn ddew, ac i weithio dros gyriawnder a heddwch. A mae'n i bod yn digarol, ond yn gadarn. A mae'n i ysgolion, ond gyda digarol. John and Mary, let love be genuine. Take what is evil, hold fast to what is good. Pray without ceasing, be of good courage, never lose heart. Let no one suffer hurt through your neglect. They hand suddenly unknown. Preach the gospel, heal the sick, rejoice in the Lord. Before you are admitted to the order of bishop, I ask you to affirm your commitment to this ministry and way of life. Therefore, I ask. Do you accept the Holy Scriptures as containing all things necessary for salvation through Jesus Christ our Lord?
I do.
Will you diligently teach and uphold the Christian faith as the Church you well has received?
By the help of God, I will.
Will you promote peace and reconciliation in the Church and in the world? And will you strive to make visible the unity of Christ's Church? Will you be loving and generous for Christ's sake to those who are in need and speak for those who are noble to speak for them?
By the help of God, I will.
Will you fashion your life according to the way of Christ and welcome all in his name?
By the help of God, I will.
Will you accept the discipline of the Church and exercise authority with justice, courtesy, and love?
By the help of God, I will.
Will you work with God's people and with the deacons and priests to proclaim the good news of Christ in the diocese in which you shall serve?
By the help of God, I will.
play your part with your fellow bishops in serving the people of this province.
And the help of God, our Lord.
May God, who knows the secrets of your heart, give you strength to do all these things through the power of the Holy Spirit. Praise God, heaven and earth. Oh our God, we praise and glorify you. It is your great love we have all throughout the world to your own possession, a royal priesthood, a universal church. Praise and glorify you for calling your people in every age, to witness to your saving love and to proclaim the good news of your kingdom. Praise and glorify you that you have called these your servants to share in this ministry entrusted to your church. Send your Holy Spirit upon your servant John for the office and work of a bishop in your church, filling with the grace and power which you gave to your apostles, that as true shepherds you may care for your people and lead them in proclaiming the saving gospel of your name. Fod ysgrifennu ar y Gwasanaeth Mary I swydd a gwaith ysgol yn dy eglwys. Llanw chi ar gras a grym ac roddais eich apostolon, bydd y byddwyr yn ddigon yn gofalu am y bobl ac yn ei harwain yn y gwaith o gyhoeddi Efengyl a chybol dy gawr. Through these your servants, Heavenly Father, increase your church, renew her ministry, and unite the members in a holy fellowship of truth and love. Give John and Mary strength to be guardians of the faith and the sacraments, as teachers given the gift of wisdom and the grace of humility, that they may use their authority to heal and not to hurt, to build up and not to destroy. Defend them from all evil, that as stewards over your household and ambassadors for Christ, they may be blameless before you, and bring them with all whom they shall serve into the kingdom of your Son, our Lord, to whom with you and the Holy Spirit belong glory and praise, honour and worship, now and forever. Amen. Byddai'r Dyw a alwodd dy Ordeinio ac Chysegru I arwain ar eglwys mewn sancteiddwy a gwirionedd. Amen. Byddai'r Dyw a alwodd dy Ordeinio ac Chysegru I arwain ar eglwys mewn sancteiddwy a gwirionedd. Amen. This is John, this is Mary, whom we have consecrated. Would you please welcome your new bishops, John and Mary?